In the year 1502, the masterful Cesare Borgia, seeking to pacify the lawless Romagna, installed the ferocious Ramiro de Orco as governor, who with cruel diligence restored order, yet incurred the hatred of the people for his harsh methods. Perceiving the danger, Borgia swiftly had Ramiro arrested, commanded that he be sawn in twain, and caused his body to be placed in the public square of Cesena, with a wooden block and a blood-stained knife by its side, thereby satisfying the populace with the sight of justice, while instilling in them a profound dread of their prince's unerring authority. Such is the profound insight of Niccolo Machiavelli, the wise Florentine, who, having witnessed the fortunes of princes and popes, composed his treatise The Prince to instruct not in moral goodness, but in the art of victory, asserting that a ruler who wishes to maintain his state must learn to act as both lion and fox, employing force and cunning in equal measure to conquer fortune and subdue all rivals.
Therefore, noble listener, prepare to discover the 5 essential techniques of psychological manipulation, whereby the Machiavellian prince subdues his adversaries without the clamor of open conflict, bending their wills through fear, deception, and strategic mercy, until they become unwitting servants to his dominion, tools in the grand design of enduring power.
For it is a truth most certain, that men are by nature ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous, and that they will sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Wherefore, a prince who relies upon their love alone builds upon sand. For love is preserved by a bond of obligation, which because of the baseness of men is broken at every opportunity for their advantage, while fear is preserved by a dread of punishment that never fails.
Therefore, the wise ruler must conclude that it is far safer to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. For men are less hesitant to offend one who is beloved than one who is feared, since love is maintained by obligation, which, as I have said, is broken whenever it is advantageous, whereas fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, which never deserts a man. Hence, to master this foundation, the prince ought to learn how to use the nature of the beast as well as that of man, choosing the lion to frighten the wolves, and the fox to recognize the traps. For he who wishes merely to be a lion falls into snares, while he who wishes merely to be a fox will be devoured by stronger beasts. Thus the perfect prince must combine the strength of the lion with the cunning of the fox, becoming both feared and unassailable.
Therefore, the wise prince must learn this first and most necessary rule, that men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Therefore, the injury that is to be done to a man ought to be of such a kind that one does not fear revenge from it.
For if you pamper a rival completely, bestowing upon him honors, riches, and security, he will become your devoted servant, fearing to lose what he has gained. Yet if you but half destroy him, leaving him alive though weakened, he will harbor eternal hatred and seek every opportunity to rise against you, as history has shown in many ruined states.
Hence, avoid all middle ways, which are the most pernicious, for in them lies the seed of your own destruction. And embrace either total benevolence that binds, or total severity that silences. For only thus does the Machiavellian prince subdue his rivals, turning potential threats into either loyal shadows or forgotten dust beneath his throne.
Men endure injuries when they are inflicted all at once and with necessity for their security, but if they are prolonged, they become intolerable. Therefore, the prudent prince commits all acts of cruelty in the beginning, so that having tasted them but once, the people may forget them sooner, and he may then bestow benefits gradually to win their affection. Thus did the valiant Caesar Borgia act, when he placed the cruel Ramiro de Orco in charge to pacify Romagna with severity. Yet perceiving that such hatred might turn against him, he caused Ramiro to be cut in two and displayed in the public square, thereby satisfying the people's desire for justice, while transferring all blame to the minister who had executed his will.
By this means, the prince appears merciful in the eyes of the people, who hate the instrument of cruelty rather than its author, and thus fear remains directed at the prince's power, while love grows from the swift resolution, and the scapegoat bears the burden of their wrath, making the ruler both feared and beloved in due measure. A prince, therefore, ought to take great care that nothing escape his mouth which is not replete with the 5 qualities of mercy, faith, humanity, uprightness, and religion. And he should appear to all who see and hear him as altogether merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious. And above all, it is necessary to seem to have the last quality. For men in general judge by the eyes than by the hands, because everyone can see, but few can feel.
Nevertheless, he must know how to disguise this character with the fox, and to be a great simulator and dissimulator. And men are so simple and so much inclined to obey present necessities, that he who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. For the prince who wishes to maintain his state is often forced to act in defiance of good faith, of charity, of humanity, and of religion, and therefore he must have a mind ready to turn itself according as the winds of fortune and the changing circumstances command him.
Thus it is well to seem merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, and also to be so, but with this understanding, that when the need arises, one must know how to change to the opposite. And the prince who has best known how to use the fox has had the best success, while he who relies only on the lion falls into snares, and by this means he keeps his subjects in awe, and maintains his reputation intact among the people who judge only what they see. A prince, therefore, who wishes to subdue his rivals without open war, ought above all to divide them and set them at variance one against another. For when they are united, they are strong, but when they are divided, they are easily destroyed. And he who knows how to foment discord among his enemies will soon see them weaken themselves by their own hands, while he remains untouched and secure in his power. Moreover,
It is often of great service to a prince to make use of his former enemies, turning those who once opposed him into the most faithful servants. For men who have received benefits from one whom they hated become more devoted than those who were always friends, since the former must prove their loyalty with greater zeal to erase past offenses, and thus the wise ruler binds them tighter by their own necessity. Hence, never trust friends overmuch, for they will betray when it suits them. But use enemies wisely, for they, having more to gain, will serve with greater diligence. And by dividing the one and elevating the other, the Machiavellian prince conquers without battle, turning the strength of his rivals into the pillars of his own enduring throne.
Therefore, let no prince imagine that fortune governs everything, and that human prudence can do nothing against her. For I hold that fortune is the arbiter of half our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half, or perhaps a little less, by our own virtue. And I compare her to one of those raging rivers, which, when in flood, overflows the plains, sweeps away trees and buildings, and shifts the ground from one place to another. Yet when the waters have subsided, men can direct them into channels and embankments, so that the next flood passes harmlessly. And thus it is with fortune, which shows her power where virtue has not prepared to resist her, and turns her fury where she knows no dikes or embankments to hold her. Wherefore the prince who relies on virtue builds such embankments of foresight and bold action, that when fortune rages, he remains unshaken and ready to seize the opportunity she offers. For fortune is a woman, and if you wish to master her, it is necessary to beat and strike her. And you see that she allows herself to be won more by the bold and the impetuous than by those who proceed with caution.
Hence the Machiavellian prince, who possesses true virtue, does not wait upon fortune, but commands her, turning adversity into advantage, and tempests into triumphs, so that his state endures through every change of the times, and his rivals are subdued, not by luck, but by the unyielding strength of his own will, and the dikes of prudence he has raised against the floods of chance.
Thus have we unfolded the 5 master techniques of the Machiavellian prince, whereby he subdues rivals, destroys or pampers with precision strikes, with swift cruelty through a chosen scapegoat, appears virtuous while acting as necessity demands, divides and conquers his foes, and masters fickle fortune through the unyielding force of his own virtue.
Let every man who would preserve his state study these arts diligently, not that he may become a tyrant, but that he may stand unyielding against the malice of fortune and the treachery of men. For he who knows not these truths will be swept away like dust, while the prince, armed with them, builds a dominion that endures through every storm.